Welcome, everybody. There's more to admit there. Thank you for joining us. Just to make it, kind of warm and cozy, I would ask everybody to please turn your screen on and mute your audio. But if you could just turn your screens on, just because it's just nicer to be talking to faces than these black squares. So thank you. So we're going to get started. As I said, thank you so much for joining us. This is part of our Career Resource Center programming. We are always looking for ideas and things that maybe you are interested in and having us cover. And so please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any ideas and things that you want us to consider for future programming. So with us tonight, we have Cindy Newman and her daughter Morgan. And Cindy is a senior director of investments at Oppenheimer and Company. That's in New York City, the Chrysler East office. Morgan is in that office as well. And both of them engage and really focus on educating this with women, but of course it applies to anybody, to help pursue financial independence. So I'm going to hand it off to them to share the 5 moves for 2023. So thank you, Morgan. Thank you, Cindy.
Our pleasure.
Yes. And now let's see, this wasn't cooperating before. So everyone let me know, is the screen advancing?
No, you're still not in presentation mode, Morgan.
No, okay, so hold on. We will get there. For some reason, that's a little particular about the order that you have to do it in. Okay.
That's it.
How about now?
Yes.
That's good, yeah.
Perfect. All right, Cindy, take it away.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for joining us this afternoon. As we embark on 2023, and I think one of the New Year's resolutions a majority of us set forth is to get our financial house in order. So it's a great resolution. We find it's very difficult for a majority of people to stick with it. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that from a resolution standpoint, if we're not held accountable, if we don't have an actionable plan, very often than not, the resolution falls by the wayside by about February. I think the same thing would go weight training, weight loss, right? Those types of things. If we don't have a plan, we don't have a mission. It seems that, and not held accountable with a buddy, it seems like we're all well intended at the outset of the year, and somehow we can't. There's no stick to itiveness. So we thought this year, when we partnered with Tuesday's Children, that we should kick off the new year. We've done this program with others to talk about 5 moves to make now to get your financial house in order for 2023. I think 5 is a palatable number that we can all kind of accomplish. And we always like to say when we do our presentations, a lot of it could be overwhelming if you're not in the finance world. And instead of being overwhelmed, I would like if each of you at the end of the program said, I'm going to do one thing going forward this weekend. When I'm starting to gather my information to do my tax return, I'm going to look at X, Y, and Z. I'm going to implement this. If there's one action item that comes off this program for each of you today, that would be fantastic. And that, I think, is the goal we'd like to assign each of you with. So when we start our presentations, we like to start off with our story, our money story, because how you relate to money has a lot to do with, and how you handle your personal finance has a lot to do with your money story. And most of us aren't even aware of the fact that we have a money story. We don't understand that what happened when we were young children under the roof of our parents, and what the story around money was and how the family related to it, whether you came from wealth, middle income, lower income, that's not really as important as just the conversation and the relationship with it. And we kind of drag this with us through our adult lives until we're now on our own and trying to handle our own personal finance. And we have these ghosts attached to us, and we do it unknowingly. So we like to tell our story. I'm going to do it briefly because we only have about 30 to 40 minutes with you, and we want to talk about what's important to you, not who we are. But my money story is that I grew up in the Jersey Shore community, which I've circled back to. And it was an affluent community. And behind that white picket fence, there was a lot of dysfunction. So my dad did not work. There's 5 of us very close in age. And my mother was the sole primary breadwinner. And whatever was happening in that environment, financially, emotionally, I said to myself, this doesn't work for me, but I'm not sure what this is, but this isn't who I want to be as I become an adult. And so through that process, I was determined to go to college. I was the first one of the 5 of us to do so. And I went to a small all-girls school in Pennsylvania, which still, I like to say, still exists. And I went with the intent to be an educator, be a teacher. So I took care of my siblings. I wanted to take care of other young children. That's all I knew. During my sophomore year, I took an econ class with a fabulous professor and outward education in came economics and business. Graduated, met my husband who lived on Staten Island. This was the 70s. And I took the Staten Island ferry into Lower Manhattan and with that, I landed on Wall Street. I'm not really sure what that was, and became an assistant to other advisors. And through many years, eventually became a financial advisor myself and developed a wonderful relationship with many clients, primarily women, but men as well. And about 10 years ago, said to myself, you know what? I might not want to work forever, or I may not live forever, and I need to think about a succession plan. Had 3 daughters. Morgan's the middle of the 3 of them, also close in age. And I guess, as you can see, Morgan drew the short straw, and I determined that she would be a good heir apparent to the practice. So Morgan, you want to tell your story, and then we'll kick off into the program.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love hearing my mom's money story because it sheds light on my own childhood. And looking back, I have no doubt that she wanted my sisters and I to be these strong, independent women. So I think about things like birthdays and holidays, and that instead of getting gifts, we used to get to pick out 1 share of company stock. So even from a young age, we were building our own investment portfolios, even if we didn't quite understand what we were doing at the time. So I grew up in a household where money was talked about very openly, and I didn't grow up with the same stress and anxiety surrounding money that Cindy had. And so I really saw it as a tool to get me from where I am to where I want to go. I also went to school in Pennsylvania. I also studied economics. And I discovered through my experiences there that my passion was, and very much so still is, helping women in the developing world build themselves out of poverty by creating their own businesses. And I thought at the age of 22, 23, I'd be impacting all of this wonderful change in the world, when in reality, I was doing grunt work behind a desk down in Virginia. And so when you're that age and your dream career is a total bust, what do? You call mom. And so it was around this same time that she was having her own life epiphany. And it didn't take us long through our conversations to realize that we had the same underlying personal and professional mission of wanting to empower women, and really everybody, when it comes to money, and helping people be able to make smart money choices for themselves and for their families. And so we started doing programs like this, and we partnered up over 10 years ago now to try and really just spread that message. We have heard so many times over the years, whether it's at work and the 401k guys came in and people didn't understand what they were talking about, to people asking us, well, can you just log into my accounts and do it for me? No, we can't, but we do want to help you understand and learn about your finances and your investments, so that you're able to get a sense of control, to feel empowered, to make smart choices. We don't want you at the back end of getting to retirement and not being able to live the life that you've worked so hard to get to. So we're thrilled to be here today with Tuesday's Children to be doing a program on financial resolutions and goal setting. It's super timely given where we are in the calendar year, but if for some reason it's not the right time for you, if you want to revisit it in the middle of the year, it's always a great time to do financial goal setting. So I hope you take that with you. I am going to put some links in the chat, in case you have to jump off early for any reason. We are going to offer everyone today, as a thank you for spending this hour with us, a complimentary consultation with Cindy and myself, and no strings attached phone call for you to just ask any questions and address any concerns that are on your mind, or that is bothering you. Even if it's just, how am I doing? Is there anything I can be doing better? I need help, sequencing loans, or I look at my investment, whatever it is, whatever's going on in your financial life, we're here to be a resource for you. So as soon as I'm done talking, I will pop those links in the chat so that you can sign up for either the consultation or our email list, where you can stay in the loop with us about other programming that we have coming up, as well as timely topics about what's happening in the world of finance and investing. Another housekeeping item before we jump into it, we will be using the chat room to collect questions and answers. If there's something that you don't feel comfortable putting in for everyone to see, you can send it directly to myself or Kathy or Nikki, and one of us will bring it up. We're going to save all the questions till the end, just so that we can make sure we get through all of the content, and then Cindy and I will be able to hang out a little bit afterwards too, in case we run over to get all of your questions answered. So with that, let's get into it. So today's agenda, you can see the bullet points here, but we're going to start at a very high level, and we're going to get down granular in terms of what to think about when it comes to financial goal setting. These are action items that you can do, tonight or over the weekend to start moving your financial life forward. And we're going to talk about two at the end here. Two things that I think are really important is, one, watching out for curveballs, because we know things are going to happen in 2023 that we're not expecting, and how to protect ourselves from that, as well as when is the appropriate time to bring in help. In all of our years of doing this, we found that people sometimes don't quite understand what financial advisors do and when you might need one. So we're going to use that opportunity to have that conversation as well. Okay, so dream it, do it. As I said, we wanted to start high level because the more you're able to envision your future self in 5, 10, 20 years from now, research has proven you're more likely to be successful at planning for that person. So we really wanted you to spend the time to, have a glass of wine, have a drink, and just, dream big, create a Pinterest board, create a vision board, journal, whatever it is. Start to think about, where do you want to be, and what does your life look like in 5, 10, 20 years from now, or even just in 2024, what do you want to accomplish this year? And because from that big picture, we can start to drill down to a more granular level of what are the steps that we need to take to get you there. And so when we think about financial goal setting, I want you to think about, from that envisioning activity, is, what are your life goals? What are the values that you want to live by, the intentions that you want to set for yourself, so that when you look at those goals that you want to accomplish for yourself in life, that usually there's a dollar sign associated with that in some capacity. So do you want to send kids to school, fund education? Do you want to retire at a certain point in time and have a certain lifestyle in retirement? Do you want to buy a vacation home, travel around the world, host your wedding, whatever it is that you want to do? All these wonderful things, they all cost money. So how do we make sure that we can actually make these goals achievable for you? And so this financial goal setting is on our worksheet, is on our website. We have a number of worksheets today that we'll go through that are available on our website that we encourage you to check out and complete. And it's a really great way to help you kind of take that big picture vision board that you have for yourself and start to put it down on paper and say, okay, well, I want to do these wonderful things. When do I want to do it? How much is that going to cost me? And really start to keep track from that perspective of, are we on track to get there? And if not, what are some changes that we need to make to move you further along? Okay. All right. Now, looking backwards to go forwards. A caveat to this is that when Cindy and I do our consultations, we always like to say, today is day one. We are looking forward. Any mistakes or regret or hangups that you have about your personal finances from previous, that's done. We're moving forward. However, that it is helpful for us to be able to look backwards to understand, how did you get to where you are, and that are there changes that we need to make in order to put you on a better path going forward. And so one of the tools that we have, the primary tool that we have in the world of personal finance to determine how are you doing at a given moment in time, is calculating your net worth. And your net worth is a snapshot of how much you are worth financially at any given moment in time. Your net worth is not your self-worth. So the numbers on this page have nothing to do with who you are as a person and the value that you bring to your friends and family and workplace and community. So if you're doing these calculations and you find yourself going down a little bit of a rabbit hole, take a step back, take a deep breath, and start uncoupling that emotion that you have attached to the numbers on this sheet of paper. And so to calculate your net worth, We look at everything that you own, all of your assets. So do you own your home? Do you have checking and savings accounts, retirement accounts, anything of that nature? We add that all up. We subtract out anything that you owe somebody else, all of your liabilities, things like mortgage, auto loans, student loans, credit cards. We take that out and we're left with a number at the end of the day, and that's your net worth. And so we like to do this calculation annually. Now is actually a really great time of the year to do this because you're going to be getting all of your year-end financial statements. And two is that you're going to be starting to pull this information together anyway when you go to file taxes. So really, it's a good way to kill two birds with one stone and calculate your net worth around this time of the year. And so some ways to increase your net worth, what you own goes up in value. If you were investing in the stock market last year, you probably saw your accounts go down. Not a lot of fun. However, the flip is true too, that as the stock market goes up, your accounts will go up. It'll increase your net worth. So that's why it's important to have the right investments so that, and Cindy's going to talk about the investing part of it in just a little bit. You save more or spend less. And we're going to talk about budgeting in a second because the most common financial New Year's resolution is saving more money. So we're going to pull that out separately. Gifts, inheritance, and lottery. Well, we're not telling you to go buy Mega Millions tickets. That is definitely a way to increase your net worth if you win the lottery. But an important thing here actually is inheritance. We don't want you to be thinking about the demise of any of your loved ones. However, we see too often people that get sudden wealth in the form of an inheritance and don't know how to manage it properly. So if you do know that you're going to be coming into money at some point in the future, just kind of have an idea in the back of your mind of what do you think you're going to do with that, and have a plan in place so you make sure that that legacy, that inheritance and gift is used in the best way possible for you. And then reduce and eliminate debt. This really is particularly true for anyone that has student loan debt or any debt and feels like you're on this hamster wheel of just paying off debt and not being able to put more money into a savings account or to pay off or to your retirement accounts. But an important thing to remember is that by reducing the amount that you owe somebody else, you are increasing your net worth. So it's really gets down to how much debt do you have? How much is it costing you? We're going to talk more about that in a second. And what's the most impactful way to pay it down for yourself? A note about net worth. We have found that when counseling couples, one person in the relationship usually knows this down to the penny. So if you're not the person in the relationship that knows this information, we don't need you to become Warren Buffett. However, we do want you to know where your money and your liability sit. We want you to know what's in them, and we want you to know why you own it. So that might seem like a tall task. Start with baby steps. Start with just calculating your net worth and pulling all that information together. But too many times we see people at points of personal crisis or catastrophe that this is a mess. And we need to have you in control of this aspect of your life, your financial life, before we get into high emotional stress times. Okay. All right. So from resolution to reality. So we highlighted the most common financial resolutions, and we're going to give you some action steps on how to make that achievable for you. All right. As I said, save more, the most common one. And so a note about saving more. It is easier to save more money when you make more money. So on our website in the past, we have done programming about how to negotiate your salary, how to ask for a raise. I encourage you to go listen to that because the more money you make, the easier it is to save more money. But with our fixed income that we have, we usually know what that is, right? It's our income from our employer. Maybe we have Social Security or pensions or other aspects of our lives, but we know what the fixed income is coming. We know what that is coming in. Where we get tripped up when it comes to budgeting and trying to save more money is all of the wonderful things that we want to do in our lives, why we work and do what we do so that we can enjoy life. And I used to call it our YOLO expenses. It's been renamed now to revenge spending as we come out of the pandemic because we are going full force of having been locked down for so long. It's things like restaurants and bars, vacations, shopping, gifts. If you're asked to be in a friend's wedding, right? All of these wonderful things that we want to do that cost money. And so it's all about a balance of how do you live your best life now while making sure that you live your best life in 5, 10, 20 years from now. So when it comes to saving more, we want you to think about a formula. It's called the 50-20-30 rule. which has become widely adopted in the world of personal finance about how to split up your money to make sure that you're saving enough. And so what it says is that 50% of your take-home income should go to your basic living expenses, what you need to keep a roof over your head every month. The 20%, that goes to your future self in some capacity. So that could be saving more in a savings account or in retirement accounts and 529 plans, whatever that mechanism is for you. And then the 30% is for you to spend on whatever brings you joy and happiness and productivity in your life. Go for it. Judgment-free zone, spend your money how you want to. And if you are in a part of the country like the New York City area where Cindy and I are, and you're like, that's a really cute formula, but I spend 50% of my income, just on my mortgage or my rent. We really want you to focus on that 20%. Getting to that 20% is going to help you ensure that you are going in the right direction for your future self. Okay. And a note about saving more, we don't usually talk about specific products in our presentations, but because interest rates have been increasing, the Fed has been trying to combat inflation, we're having conversations now that we haven't had in 10, 15 years, that you can now put your cash to work for you, essentially. Now, the downside of interest rates going higher is that we had a really bad stock market last year. The silver lining to it is that you can now go to high yield savings accounts that are over 3%, close to 4%. You can go to their CDs available. There was 6-month CD available at Oppenheimer's at almost 4.5%. These are close to, I can't say officially risk-free, but really close to risk-free ways to get your cash doing something that it wasn't previously doing. So if you're investing in a regular bank savings account like Chase, and you've been seeing it earn pennies over the past couple of years, that there is an opportunity now to explore looking elsewhere of how to have that cash, it's free money, it's interest, right? Go get it. But now that it's available to you. Okay. All right, paying down debt. So when we talk about debt, most conversations that we have go like this. This is, I have a student loan, I have this outstanding balance, it's this provider, and this is how much I pay every month. Okay, and our first question to you, and if you schedule a consultation, our first question to you is going to be, what is the interest rate on that loan? How much is that debt costing you every month? Because the interest rates are crucially important when it comes to making a plan to pay down debt. We approach debt differently if you have a student loan at 5 or 6% versus a high yield credit card at 25 to 30%. So we want to make sure that we know how much those loans are costing you, so we can make a payoff schedule that uses your dollars as effectively as possible. Just throwing money at random cards or random loans every month is not a plan. We want to make a plan so that you can tackle this. If you do have debt and you want to schedule a consultation, I'm going to highly recommend that you complete this worksheet before scheduling your consultation. It'll help us during our time together make a really impactful strategy for you on how to approach paying that debt down and making the most of the dollars that you have.
We just also want to check. We frequently will get a question on this. This is the most common question. Should I pay down debt or put money into a retirement account?
Yeah.
That's a very common question we get, regardless of what type of debt you have. That's why getting a grasp on what the debt actually looks like, because that's a very high level question and it's a good question. But in order to give you the appropriate answer, we need to go under the hood. And that's what this is for. And like Morgan said, everyone knows the minimum payment, but very rarely do people know the interest rate attached to that payment. And that is absolutely the most critical part of debt. And we're trying to help you work through how to pay it down.
Yes. Okay. So I'll turn it over to Cindy here.
Okay, good. All right. I'm up. All right. So the next step, the next resolution is to invest wisely. I think this is it's always an important topic. We can't give you the level that we'd like to in this brief conversation we're going to have about it, but I really want to be able to give you some takeaways that you might want to mull over the weekend, thinking about your investment strategies. Most importantly, when we talk to individuals about investing, the high level where you should start when you're assessing whether to start investing or reviewing what you currently have and trying to determine if it's correct. We want you to take a bird's eye view, the high level view first, about not what stock you should own or what mutual fund you should own, but what's the right allocation of how the dollars are invested, high level. And that's really, this gets into what Morgan had spoken about earlier, goal setting. So the question I would have for you, if you came to me and said, Cindy, can you look at my investment portfolio? Should I make any changes? And one of the first questions I would ask for you is, what's the intention of the dollars? What are you saving and investing for? And you can see here by these simple pie charts that there's a distinct difference between having a short-term goal like saving for a wedding and buying a car versus maybe a 3 to 5 year time horizon for collecting a down payment to buy a home, or versus a retirement trajectory, whether you're beginning to work, you're in a mid-year career, or at the end of your career, what the retirement approach should be. And it's important because it's not just what investments, it's how the allocation, how much you have inside the investment strategy for the time horizon that you have cited. So we're going to, as a professional, we would tell you that the investment strategy for something that's going to come due in 2 years is going to be different than if we're saving for 20 years. So for someone that's saving for a goal in 2 years, yeah, last year's down stock market hurt. It hurt a lot, because now we need that money to come back in the next year. And it's in all likelihood, unless you invested just in oil and gas last year, your investment portfolio is down. Now, for the person that we're investing for retirement, it doesn't matter what the market did last year. It's irrelevant to a certain extent. It doesn't matter because it only matters if you're going to make a change. If you're going to ride through it, as you all likely should, what happens this year, 5 years from now, when we talk about what happened in 2022, you'll be like, oh yeah, really? Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, we had that inflationary jump, and we had this increase in interest rates. I'll have to remind you of it. Like I'd have to remind you of March of 2020. You remember March of 2020 was the month that we all locked down for COVID and the market was down 30%. Yeah, people forget because we had this rebound as the year went on through the stock market. So what's important with this is when you start to look at your investments to assess, most importantly, what are you investing for, which will dictate how to invest the dollars, how much to be conservative with, less stocks when you have a shorter time horizon, more stocks when you have a longer time horizon. And then sometimes our lives are complicated, right? So we could have, if you're have a family, you could be saving for retirement, trying to buy a piece of real estate, and also trying to save for a child's education at the same time. Different goals have different investment strategies attached to them. So it doesn't mean everything sits in one bucket, different strategies for different goals. So I want you to take a high level approach and think about this as you're trying to assess how to, what the right investment strategy is for your families. Most importantly, for those of you that are contemplating or haven't started yet, the most important thing about investing is the compounding of the dollars. And I put this slide up only because I want to understand, for people that are not mathematicians, the compounding of money over time is incredibly powerful. And for those of you that are saving in retirement accounts, you will see what happens over time by investing and keeping with the strategy, the reinvestment of interest, the reinvestment of dividends, of capital gains, really over time compounds itself. And the balances grow so much more because of the time element involved. Strictly the father time is a real impact on how your wealth accumulates. And this illustration looks at 3 people that invested the same exact amount of money. The only difference is that Eric started younger than Jessica did. They each put in about $123,000. And because Eric started and he was 30, his balance grew to $842,000 by the time he was 70. And poor Jessica, who woke up when she was 50 and said, I just went to the presentation with Cindy and Morgan. I've got to get started. I've got to catch up to my peers. And she started at the age of 50, and her 123,000 grew to what's that? 300,000. It shows you the difference of time. So I always say, particularly young people, start as soon as possible with whatever you can afford to invest, whether you're doing it for investment strategies, for retirement planning, whether it's for education funding, whether it's for a real estate transaction, saving to start a business. The earlier you start, the more effective and the greater wealth accumulation you'll have by starting soon. When you look at your investment strategy, I think it's important to look at how you're invested when you get under the hood of your investments. And then this is called the investment pyramid. It's in the world of personal finance. goes way back, but I think it's still very important because people get muddled when they talk about money and investments. I think everything goes into one ball and we get overwhelmed by it. But I want you to break it down and understand the differences of what you have and how you own it, and what the returns have been are predicated on how the lower on this investment pyramid is your base of your investment strategy. So the bottom part of it is going to be highly liquid cash, savings accounts, government bonds, money markets. That's the base of your account. That's your emergency savings. God forbid you get ill, you're unemployed, the roof comes off, whatever it might happen, where we don't want you to have to go into your investments to pay for these emergency needs. And this is where the base of your, you start with saving. And once you get the base accomplished, we can move you up the pyramid. But we're not going to start at the top. We're not going to go to Bitcoin right off the top, right? We got to make it sure, if we're doing this appropriately and conservative approach for the majority of us, we want to have a base. And as we get the base fulfilled, we can start to step it up. Now, in Wall Street terminology, as you go up the pyramid, they use the word risk, right? Low risk at the bottom, high risk at the top. And I think the word risk is incredibly off-putting. I mean, it's relevant and I don't want to ignore it, but I think a better word would be growth, right? If I substituted low growth for high growth, you'd be, I want that. I don't want low growth, I want high growth. And you can get growth, and you will get the volatility, you get the up and down of the stock market, but if you're well diversified and you have high quality investments, just like what happened in 2022, yes, things went down, but things will come back up. If you stay the course, you're going to be able to benefit as the tide starts to go back in. So I want you to make sure that you look at this from the perspective of the base, ensuring that you have a base built, and as you get more secure and your wealth grows and you have the ability to take on more risk/growth, we move you up the pyramid. So I think it's important to keep this in context so that you can translate this back into what your investment strategies look like, and see if you can relate to how that your strategies are built based on what the base looks like versus what the tip of this looks like. Most importantly, when we're investing, if we're looking for a longer term, and I would say people, it's hard to qualify personal finance. Let me preface by saying this: personal finance, the word personal is there for a reason, right? You and I could be the same exact age, make the same amount of money, but my life is radically different than yours. So why should my personal finance look the same as yours? You may be able to drive above the speed limit, and I'm in the right lane going below the speed limit. So you and I have different risk profiles. So why would we invest the same? Just because we're the same age, we make the same amount of money, doesn't mean that our personal finance is going to look the same, right? Different behind that white picket fence, everybody is different. And we want to be reflective of that. So what's important when we look at giving you a guideline for investing, I would say at least 5-year horizon when you're talking about investing in stocks. So when you're looking for a child's education, that's going to span 15, 18, 20 years. When you're looking at retirement, when you're looking at saving for a vacation home, those are longer term goals where stocks make a very appropriate investment decision. And the reason I put this graph in is because it goes back to the 20s, 30s during the Great Depression. These are all as you can see from the title, I'll have to read it to you can see it, all the world events that occurred that brought the stock market down violently over these periods, during these moments. They don't look as violent when you look at it on a straight bar graph, line graph like this, because it's all going upward. But let's just go to 2008, the financial crisis. And I use that because I think most of us lived through it and can relate to it. And if you go back to 2008, we're actually the bottom of the market in that period was the first quarter of 2009. And if you go back and look at the headlines that everyone was spouting, there was complete negativity. You would have taken every dollar you owned and put it under your mattress and not given it to a bank, and making sure it was safe as can be with absolutely no return. Actually, it was the ideal time to back up the wheelbarrow and buy anything that you could get your hands on of high quality nature, whether it was Netflix, whether it was Exxon, whether it was Google, it doesn't matter, and backed up the truck. And we were on a straight trajectory almost since 2008. And I raised that point because the very well paid commentators and very smart people, and I don't think that you should ignore them because I don't know either, but I think I want to put just a grain of salt in the conversation of that. They're conversations about what the market's going to do, what it should have done in 22, what did they think it will do in 23, is all trying to project the future, predict the future. And we all know nobody can do that, right? Last year at this time, we weren't even talking about the invasion of Ukraine. We weren't even talking about this hyperinflation. Yes, some inflation, but not a hyperinflation. 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we weren't even talking about COVID. It wasn't even on the landscape. And they were predicting what the market would do. So what I'm saying here is ignore the headlines. Put together a good investment strategy that's well diversified, that has the right allocation between stocks and bonds, and stay the course. That's by and large the best advice that anyone can give you. And I think that if the strategy is correct, you're going to get to your goal. And I like to use the analogy: if we're going to go on a cruise and we're going to get on the ship here in the New York Harbor, and we're going to go over to the UK, right? We know for a fact we can hit some turbulence in the water as we travel across the water. If we hit turbulence, we're not going to jump out, right? We're going to stay in the boat and we're going to get to our destination. So if that is what your goal is, long-term growth, and you have the right strategy, stay the path. Now, that doesn't mean that when you do your annual review, when you do your net worth assessment, and you do an assessment of your retirement assets or your investment assets, that you don't look back reflectively. What happened in 2022? It was a pretty interesting year where things that we haven't seen in a long time, technology, which was the engine that drove the train for these last 15 years, actually came down significantly, right? And oil and gas, which has done nothing for the last decade, was the asset class that went up the most. So when you're reassessing and looking, can you tweak any of your investment strategy to maybe think about, maybe if you have conviction that technology got really hit in 2022, that maybe you can increase your holdings there? This is the thing that I want you to think about. That's where the opportunity arises. We don't want you to wholesale make changes, but tweaking things during major moves like last year can be beneficial in out years. So something to think about.
Okay. Okay. So watch out for curveballs. All right. So, coming out of the COVID pandemic and into the down market of 2022, life happens. It's not if things happen in life, it's when they happen, whether it's you get sick and you have unexpected medical bills, you lose your job, the car breaks down, whatever it is, these things are going to happen at some point in time. And we need you to be prepared for these curveballs. And we don't want you going into invading retirement accounts or borrowing on high interest credit cards for these things that are inevitably going to happen. So what can we do today to get prepared for when these things do occur? And the first step is getting organized. Today we live very transient lives. We change jobs and cities and names and locations. So we want to make sure that this paper trail behind us is pulled together and organized. So there's a list of 7 different items on this page. I'll let you read them about things that we want you to keep together to keep your financial life organized. One thing that's not on here is an inventory of what's called your digital assets. So anything that you have from if you have cryptocurrencies, to what is the login information for your Instagram account. And really particularly for your financial accounts, because so many times people are motivated to go make changes or consolidate, whatever it might be, after our programs, and we get stuck out of the gate because they have to go through a lengthy process to verify their identity because they can't find their passwords. So keep this information up to date, keep it together, whether it is hard copy or online, whatever you feel comfortable with, whatever works for you. We want you to do it for 2 reasons. 1, we want you to know where everything sits that you own and that you owe somebody else. And 2, we want you to tell someone who you really, really trust where all of this information sits. Because at a time of personal crisis or catastrophe, we do not want you or your loved ones worried about this aspect of your life. These are things that we could do today to be prepared in case something bad happens. Okay. Look for opportunities to consolidate accounts. The more streamlined, the more consolidated you are, the easier it's going to be logistically, administratively, tax-wise, from a cost perspective. it's better across the board to have it as consolidated your accounts as much as possible. We want every account that you own to serve a purpose. So if you have multiple checking and savings accounts or multiple retirement plans, ask yourself, why are they there? If there's a purpose for it, that's great, cool, keep them. But if it's just because you've opened things up over the years and just haven't gone to completion of consolidating, use this as your wake-up call that this is an important step for you to take care of. And where we see a lot of opportunity for this in particular is in the retirement plan space, because when you leave an employer, you have the ability to take your plan with you, whether you move it to a new employer, if you roll it to an IRA account, if you need to take the money out because you want it or need it. But oftentimes we see people just leave it there because it's kind of a pain to go back and get it and decide what to do, because there are pros and cons to each of those options. And we want to make sure that you take your time to make those decisions, but we don't want you to take forever. So if you have old retirement plans, we encourage you to go back and look for ways to consolidate them and roll them together. And they're very portable. You could roll 401ks into IRAs, IRAs into 401ks. So there's really not a reason to have multiple outstanding retirement plans. So that's a really great way for you to take proactive steps this year in making your financial house more organized.
I also just jump in 2 seconds. I also say we see a lot of where we in the end of someone's lives, and then the need for the beneficiaries or the executor to collect this stuff. And it just, unless it really makes sense, it just creates a logistic headache and just more pain and anxiety for your loved ones. So just, we all don't like to think about what, God forbid something should happen, but these are just things that just make it a lot easier for everybody.
Agreed. Okay. And protecting your investments. We talk a lot about in the personal finance investing space about growing your money and taking on risk and investing and whatnot. But just as important as growing and investing your money is making sure you're protected as well, that you and your family have the protections in place that you need. And so there's some tools here listed on this page that we have available to us to make sure that you are in fact protected appropriately. Insurance, most of us do our insurance through our employers. And just know that when you do have insurance through your employer, that insurance disappears if you leave that employer. So we don't advocate for making the insurance companies wealthy. However, there are some times that it makes sense to look into getting additional insurance to what you have at work. And also too, if you do have it through your employer, you probably just went through open enrollment. Make sure that when you do go through open enrollment again, know what these policies are and make sure that you have the appropriate coverage and you're not just checking boxes to say, I just don't want the deductions to come out of my paycheck, right? Make sure you have the sufficient insurance coverage that you need. The younger you are, the more likely you are to be disabled than you are to die. So disability insurance, well, it hopefully is unnecessary, as we hope with all of these insurances are, that it is an important piece of that puzzle. Estate planning. If you're thinking to yourself, I don't have an estate, my home is not that big, I am not Bill Gates. Well, if you have something just in your name from a legal perspective, you have an estate. So making sure that you have your estate documents, your legal documents up to date and completed, we highly recommend that. People have asked us, could you do it online? You can do it online. We have had attorneys say they love it when people do it online because they spend more money unraveling the mistakes that you have made than if you had just done it with the attorney in the first place. So, it's up to you, but we do want to make sure that you have those estate planning documents in place. In addition to that, what's not listed here is also account titling and beneficiaries are incredibly important. Making sure that when you do this update of your financial life, that all your beneficiaries are up to date and you have your accounts titled the way that they should be. And then asset preservation, making sure that your money lasts as long as you do, right? We don't want you to run out of money before you leave this good earth. So if that is a situation that you're in, we're happy to talk more about annuities and long-term care during your consultation. A note on long-term care, it's a really great way to open up the conversation about money within your family unit. If you have parents who are the boomer generation or older, use us as scapegoats as an example and say, I went to this program with 2 women from Oppenheimer. They mentioned long-term care. Mom and dad, if something should happen to you, what's the plan, right? Where do you want to receive care? Do you have a plan to pay for care? It's a lot nicer way to start to open that door, as opposed to saying, how much do you have and am I in the will? So just a little more tactful way of doing it. Okay, now bringing in help. So what does a financial advisor do? I've thought about this a number of different ways, and what really stuck for me is it's the GORP method of managing your money, that a financial advisor can help you grow your money through investing and saving. We can help you retain your money through minimizing taxes and fees, working with your other advisors, the tax advisor, the estate attorney in your life, to make sure we're all on the same page, making sure that your investments are protected through the appropriate methods with insurance, etc. And we can help you pass on your money. So we make sure that your account titling is correct, that we make sure that if you have charitable giving is important to you, that that's done tax efficiently and impactfully, and that if you're no longer here, that the money goes where you want it to go. And so the most common times that people need financial advisors, when you start to have this question about, do I need help, are listed here. The big ones really are when something happens in your life, whether it's a good thing like having children or getting married. You get a promotion at work and you're making more money and need help trying to figure out how to split that up, to the bad things, right? Unemployment, divorce, disability, death, etc. But I think the most important one here, in terms of thinking about financial resolutions and goals for the new year, is that if you need a cheerleader, advocate, and accountability partner, because I know at the end of a long day, the last thing anyone really wants to go do is maybe some people do, good for them, but really go and be like, let me look at my investments and dive into my 401k plan and go search through my budget for how am I spending my money. And so it's easy to put this stuff on the back burner and to push it off. So the advisor really can play that role of making sure that you're doing what you need to be doing to move your financial life forward, and also help you delegate out some of that responsibility so all of the burden is not on you to get that done. Okay. So as I said, as a thank you for joining us today, we're offering everyone a complimentary consultation with Cindy and myself, 30 minutes to think about the next 30 years, whatever is on your mind from a financial related perspective. We're here to help you with, from sequencing debt to looking at 401k plans and retirement savings, helping you budget and save for different goals in your life, whatever it might be. We're here to be a resource for you. If we find opportunity to work together, great, we can pursue that further. If not, then we're going to give you as much free advice and guidance and resources as we can in that 30 minutes. We never want someone to feel like they can't come to us because they don't think they have enough funds or enough means. Come to us. We want to get you to the point that you could become a client, right? We're on this journey with you. And so we talked about a lot today in terms of what you can do to move your financial life forward and help you set goals and accomplish them for 2023. We listed some stuff here. Find a couple, 1 to 2 to 3, maybe even, that you can spend the next, 15, 20 minutes over the weekend or the next couple of days doing. Don't expect to overhaul your entire financial life. It's not realistic. It's not sustainable. We want you to take baby steps in moving forward. Keep us posted on how you're doing. We want to celebrate your accomplishments together, as well as if you do get tripped up along the way, let us know, because we're here to be a resource and to help you get back on track. So with that, I think we did it all in time, right?
Yes.
We did. I'll be damned. So so thank you for joining us this evening. And I think I'm going to turn it back over to Kathy and Nikki for Q&A.
Yeah, thank you so much, Morgan and Cindy. Really, that was amazing. There are a few questions that I will read out. The first one is, how do we choose what we want to invest in our 401ks? There are so many options. It's just easier to set the target date fund, but I don't know if that's the best thing.
Okay, that's a really great question, because having access to a 401k plan is a really impactful way to save for retirement. The problem with it is that when you go to a new employer or you log into your accounts, they just see this whole list of funds and there's no one there to help you figure out how to put it together. If you don't make a selection, most of the time that you will end up in a target date fund. And you're in it because when you log into the account, you'll see it has a year in it, be 2040, 2045. And they pick that year based on what year they think you're going to retire in based on your age. And what you don't see below that in that fund is that the fund company is deciding how much to have in stocks and bonds for you. And the younger you are, that earlier in your career that you will be more invested in stocks. And then as you get closer to retirement age, you'll get more invested in bonds and cash. So the investment mix underneath that fund is changing as you age up. And so it is the easiest way to do it. And we think as people get started, it's a really impactful way to do it. But it's not always necessarily the best option for you. Because it's going to look at, just looks at your age, right? And my profile at, being 36 is different than anyone else at 36. And so maybe I don't need as much in bonds in my retirement plan as opposed to someone else who maybe needs more, right? And maybe I really like international stocks and I want to have more there. So it is a worthwhile exercise to try to figure out, okay, what is that right mix in the retirement plan for me, and see if we can do better than what's in the target date. That being said, you are, based on the funds that you have, we're limited to say, how can we put this together? But I definitely recommend, Kat, that you should schedule a consultation. We can go through that fund menu together and talk about where you are and see what is the optimal mix for you.
Great. Another question. Should I fund my retirement before my children's 529 college fund?
This is a good question. And that definitely is a question that needs more information. The attitude there is that you can borrow for education, you can't borrow for retirement. So just that's number one. But number two, this is really a deeper dive to understand what the availability, what your retirement looks like, how much do we need to save for retirement, what's the goal there, so what's the funding need there, and how old is the child, and what's the educational funding need there. And we need to look at these both in their entirety to help guide you specifically how to split the available dollars, which bucket to deposit them into. So it's, there are a couple good questions. It's not a black and white answer, but I want you to think about, if you're saving for retirement, we need to attach a funding amount, when you would like to retire, and how much you think you would need. And these are all things that software is out there to help calculate. So how close are we on that goal? And then what does the child's funding look like? How much is available to go for both of these goals? And then therefore, how do we split the dollars based on what the needs are? So not a simple answer, but a really good question.
Okay. The next question is, just review again, what's the 5-20-30 budget?
Sure. So the 50-20-30 budget looks
50.
at how much you should be saving and spending. Essentially, that 50% of your take-home income should be going to your basic living expenses, what you need to keep a roof over your head and keep the lights on every month. The 20% goes to your future self in some capacity. So is that putting money into a retirement plan? Is it paying down debt? Is it saving for a child's education? Whatever the financial goals are that you set for yourself, that's where that 20% comes in. And that 30% is your fun money to spend on whatever brings you joy and happiness and productivity in your life. Spend it how you want, go for it. I know some of us live in very high housing cost areas of the country. And so if, what we really want you to focus on, if that 50-30 split seems a little tough to get to, the 20% is the most important there, of making sure that you're saving 20% for your future self.
Good rule. And how do we roll over our 401k?
Okay, that's a good question. So while you're at your current employer, your 401k has to stay there. When you leave your employer, for whatever reason, then you have the opportunity to roll it over. Now, with all the different plan providers that are out there, whether it's Fidelity or Vanguard, Empower, Transamerica, they all do it a little differently. If you log into your account online, or if you look at a statement, there's going to be a phone number on the statement. If you call them, they can help you go through the process, or you can try to do it online. I will say they do sometimes try to make it difficult for you online to figure out how to do it, because they would rather you keep your money in the plan. But there are ways to do it. If you are interested in rolling over a 401k and you just want to make sure you're doing it right, because we don't want you to accidentally take a distribution and create a taxable event for yourself, let us know. We can be on the phone with you to help navigate that conversation and make sure we're doing all the right things on that paperwork or with the Q&A that they give you.
The other thing I'll add there is take your time with this decision. It's an important decision. The regulators are have scrutinized this area because you want to ensure that if you're rolling it over, you can roll to, if you work for a new company, you can roll it to the new company. You can roll it into an IRA and then have endless investment options. There's also different costs and fees attached to all this. If you're contemplating this, make sure that you're having an honest, transparent conversation with the other side, that this is in your best interest. So just be careful about it and make sure that you are comfortable with the advice that you're being given, and take your time to make that decision.
Good advice. I think last question. Is it better to have a oh no, it's not the last. Everybody, please keep your questions coming. They're really good ones. Is it better to have a 529 account or a portfolio for your kids?
Neither is better, but they both have nuances to them. When you start to get into the world of saving for children and for education, you have a couple different options. They all have pros and cons to them. And we don't have enough time today to go over all the different options. The 529 accounts, what people's hesitation tends to be with that is that you can only use it for education. It used to be just for college. The rules have started to expand more, that you can now use up to $10,000 for education before you get to the college level. And there's also new legislation coming out in the new Secure Act that you can now roll money from a 529 plan into a Roth IRA if you don't use it all. You can also, 529 plans, you can pass from one beneficiary to another. So if you have multiple children, you can front load one. If they don't use it all, it can go to the other. So it's usually the most tax efficient and effective way to save for education. But if you're looking to save for other options too as well for your child, that having a account, whether it's a custodial account in their name that they come into at the age of 18, or if you just have a separate account for yourself that you kind of bucket in your head as their money, then you don't have to give it to them when they get to 18. There's a lot of different ways to do it and to structure it, and it really just depends on what are you looking to save for and accomplish with those dollars.
Okay. What is the 12-month CD rate with Oppenheimer?
As of this morning, it was 4.6.
Okay.
That's a specific question. That is a black and white question. That we can answer. And before we end, I just want to say, Tim, go Giants.
Yeah, I saw it too. I'm with you. That's right.
I'd add that.
Go Giants. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're with you.
Thank you for all the great info.
Oh, our pleasure. Absolutely.
Well, thank you, everybody. And thank you so much, Cindy and Morgan. You've really been tremendous. And your presentation is just so, I'm going to watch it again, I think. And we do have it recorded. So if anybody does want it, but also Morgan put their website on in the chat here, so you can access it. But just thank you all for coming. I would like to just mention that we have one more program coming up in the month of January. It's January 31st, and it is our LinkedIn and resume review workshop. So the people at LinkedIn will work with you on your profiles. It's really the first place that an employer will look at when they are considering hiring you. And so you want to have a really good, powerful, impressive profile, and they are there to help you get there. All right. So I hope we see you on the 31st. Go to the Tuesdays Children calendar and you can register. So thanks again, everybody, and take care.
And I just want to say, take advantage of the consultation.
Cindy, thank you.
Your time and effort, energy, and a great way to get into your financial journey for 2023.
That's a real gift. That half hour, that's a real gift.
Our pleasure. All right, everyone. Be well, be safe, and happy and wealthy 2023.
Yes.